All right, greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 442. We have a returning guest who hasn't been on in a little while, so we're anxious to talk to him. But we'll do what we always do. We go around the virtual room, introduce ourselves, and talk about anything we got going on, anything we want to promote, all that kind of stuff. So I will kick that off. You are on my channel. So also on this channel, if you're a comic book fan, we're going to be talking about comics today, as we do quite a bit. But if you are a comic book fan and you want to brush up on your comic making skills, or just want to get into making comics, I have a series. You have to go. It's in my playlist and stuff, but you have to go a little further back. But it's called Making Comics 101. It is the most comprehensive free course on making comics you can find anywhere, and it is, like I said, free to you on YouTube. And then I've got newer content. I should have another video coming out next week. I've been working on some stuff behind the scenes, but just some really cool videos of me creating really cool projects based on ephemera and stuff that you would remember if you are Gen X. And if you're not Gen X, you might discover something new and cool. So check those out. Also, I have a website, circworks.com, where you can find my digital products that'll help you make comics better, faster, more efficiently. I also have prints and all that kind of stuff. You can check that out on my website. And I do have an event coming up at Surprise Comics on Black Friday. So if you are in Surprise, Arizona, and you want to be up at midnight, I will be there unveiling this print, which you can get for free. Not exactly this big. The one that I'll have there will be 11 by 17, and you will get that free with any purchase on that day, on Black Friday. So starting at midnight, I'll be there at midnight signing for about a couple hours, and then I'll go home and go to sleep and come back, and I'll probably be doing some sketches and stuff on that Black Friday. So
a question.
Yes.
If one is not in Arizona and wanted said print, how would one go about that? Is there a way?
Well, if somebody, it depends who the one person is. If it's somebody who I have a pretty good friendship with that I talk with every week, I can figure out a way to make that happen.
Okay.
Anyone else, I think you might be able to, they might have it up on the store for I think the past ones after Black Friday, I think they've sold for like $10 or $15.
Oh, cool. Okay. So basically, if you're in the area, you want to kind of get to Surprise, because that's like a pretty exclusive thing, Yeah, those are beautiful.
Yeah, and I'll have a video on that process of me making that, and it's pretty. There's a few different, more than just a print. As you can kind of see, it's a playing card. I won't reveal the whole thing, but on the back, real quick, there's a thing there. So I'll show that whole process of me putting that together.
Wait, it's double-sided?
Yeah. You'll have to watch the video.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the print that you get at Surprise isn't. It's just a regular print. But I had to do something extra for YouTube, so I kind of,
I love
created an actual giant playing card. Anyway, so that's me. So now we're going to move over to Cory. Cory, what's going on? Where can people find you? What do you got? What do you got that you want to talk about?
Same old stuff. So if you want to catch my comic, Rage of Enlightenment, for free, and make sure that you don't miss any of the pages as I put them out, get on to corykerr.com/rage. I've got 5 pages out now. I've got another 4 that are mostly inked and will be colored probably by the end of the week. And so those are coming out in the next few days. And then I've got Heart of Eternity, the book that explores what would happen if time stopped working correctly. And the most recent one is, what would it be like if everyone you looked at, you saw them at the moment of their death? And could you use that information to try to help them avoid deaths?
I was busy when you posted that, and I totally forgot. So I got to make a note to go back and watch that.
Yeah,
I'm kind of in the same boat. So I
knew about the Rage one, but not the other.
Yes. Well, if you want to listen to, watch, or read that book, then you can go to corykerr.com/book. Sorry. What was that, Gaz?
I said, could you repeat the title?
The title of the book is Heart of Eternity.
Heart of Eternity. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've got 12 chapters of that out now.
I love it.
All of that is free. Yeah. So just come over to Substack, and I've decided to stop trying to make money. So everybody can just read,
which will tie into our theme, our title.
All right. So. Josh, what about you?
So a couple things I want to mention. I think Cory will be stoked on this. So for some reason recently I've decided maybe X isn't the best place for me to be on social media. So I just opened a Blue Sky account. I think at this point I haven't really been promoting it. So I have like, a couple followers on there. But if you guys want, please follow Joshua Kemble on Blue Sky. It's just spelt like you see right down there. And I also opened up a Threads as well. So I'm going to dip my toes into try some new social media options for some strange reason. It's not motivated by anything currently outside of just not wanting to support a horrible platform. So that's basically and Cory just gave the I've been telling you guys like the smile. It's true. He has. He's been warning.
Yeah. You picked Threads though, so you picked like.
Well, Threads is like the lesser of two evils at this point, but yeah, I would if I'm encouraging people to follow me somewhere, it'll be much more active on Blue Sky eventually, because I think that has some promising, potential, and then we'll see where it goes.
Blue Sky's interesting. I still like Substack, but yeah.
Nice. And Substack is looking like a cool option too, but again, well, I'm kind of like Scott in the sense that my bandwidth, although Scott has one, my bandwidth for social media is pretty slim.
Yeah. No, and should join Blue Sky just in case, but
I think given the proclivity and leanings of you two, I would say you'd feel most at home at Blue Sky.
Nice.
I'm on Kara, Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon. Of those, Blue Sky is like old liberal Twitter, probably the most of those group. So anyway,
I miss like old Twitter, not necessarily old, like just older Twitter. But anyhow, The last thing is make sure you support Jacob's Apartment in Two Stories, my two graphic novels. Graphic novels are a long, thankless thing, as I'm sure we're going to be talking about on this thing. So support for indie comics is always really helpful. So please check out my indie comics, support them if you like them, leave a review. That's always a nice thing. They're available at bookstores everywhere. And then there's independent music as well on all music streaming platforms. And now I feel like I've taken way too long. Gaz, passing the mic.
I was feeling bad about the things I was going to mention, but not anymore. Now I feel
Go
free.
on, take as much time as you need.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing the thing I was sharing so I could show people?
Hold on, just 1 second. Where is that? Is that under? Where's the thing he would?
Do you want me to get it?
Yeah. There we go. Thank you. The main thing I want to talk about is this is an Indiegogo for a book called Mighty Mascots. They're doing issue number 10. Now, I'm friends with the guy who wrote it and other people involved. So, hey, great, support them. But why am I talking about it here? Well, because if you scroll down one of the tiers right here, I did a variant cover.
Oh, cool.
Of this
guy
that's
right awesome.
Here. So you could get, whatever package you want. I think we need some more of these. So far, only 2 people have got my exclusive by itself. Other people have gotten the package. But there's like 7 days left to back the campaign. And then I think there'll be some sort of after package where you can still get it. But that is on Indiegogo, Mighty Mascots. Back it and make sure my cover sells the best.
That's cool. Yeah, I actually have. They used to be an Alterna title, and I've got a bunch of those. So
I don't know why. A couple of people asked me why they switched over, and I honestly don't know because I mean maybe it had to do with sales, but again, Keith Gleason's like the publisher, writer, creator, and I feel like his comics are doing better than they ever did. So yeah, I don't know why the split there. So.
Yeah, I don't either, but that's cool. That's awesome.
Thank you. And that's the first official variant cover I've ever done, having wanted to do one for years. So
congrats.
Finally.
If you can get into doing it, I've done a few and it's pretty cool.
I mean,
you can do that through, have you ever reached out to like different comic? It depends on the comic book store, but like Surprise.
I spent like the last couple of years I've been interested, but I spent like a solid year where like my goal was to try to get one. And I talked to several different local comic shops. I wrote to publishers. I talked to artist friends I knew. One comic store that I'm like friends with the owner and like nobody. I'm like, I'll do the art for free. No. Okay. How about if I pay half the printing cost and we split the stock? No, like just I could not get a yes. And then I had friends who were doing comics, and I'm like, hey, you need a variant cover? No. And so like after about a year of that, I was like, okay, this is never gonna happen. And that was like a little less, maybe a year ago, that I finally was like, well, I'm gonna stop pursuing this because it's just making me nuts. And then randomly, my friend Keith is like, hey, do you want to do a variant cover? And I'm like, yes, yes, finally. So, but no, I know there are those. I don't know why, but I just had a really hard time getting somebody to want me to do it. I couldn't tell you why.
Isn't it weird how that it's kind of like dating, where it's like it happens when you're not looking, kind of thing. You know,
maybe I was just dripping with desperation too much or something.
Yeah, it's a weird one, but yeah, that's cool that it worked, man. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful cover. I love the way you drew that dragon's teeth too.
Oh, thanks.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's like the current thing going on. I have an Etsy store. I'm Gazbot everywhere online. I have an Etsy store. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Kara. I am still on Twitter, although I just repost from my Instagram. I'm not really on there.
Yeah.
I'm on YouTube, of course. And then my comic, The Horror 4, you can get issue 1 and 2 on Indie Planet. I have issue 2 in stock, but I don't have issue 1. I'll probably reprint it when 3 comes out. 3 is what I'm working on currently. And then Ultraman cards, and that's all I really care to talk about.
I love that, and the Ultraman cards are beautiful. So
they are, and thank you. But it's already the campaign is already done for the one that I contributed. Series 3 and Series 4 is not out yet, so it's like, yes, I do Ultraman sketch cards, but there's nowhere to point to anybody right now that matters. So,
but if you guys like Ultraman or giant kaiju and stuff like that, you need to see Gaz's stuff. It's incredible. So,
thank you.
Yeah. All right. So basically, I reached out to Gaz because I always, anytime I see one of his videos, because if you haven't, definitely check out his YouTube channel. If you haven't, there's a link in the description for his website, and I think on the website there's a link to his YouTube, everything. But like you said, it's Gaz everywhere. So Gazbot. But so I usually check out whenever he puts something out because he's very entertaining. But so he had mentioned in one of his updates that he was back to working on the Horror 4, and I know a long time ago he shared with me sort of like there's a big event that's a big, if you follow the book, there's a big kind of reveal that happens in this issue, and I've been kind of sitting on quietly. I didn't sign an NDA.
Sorry to burden with you that.
I'm not the kind of person that's going to wreck that. So, but
I also, when I told you, I didn't think you'd have to hold that secret for years.
But it's still, even though I kind of know it, I want to see how it plays out. And anyone that, and this is when we get to our topic, but anyone that's done comics knows that they're a labor of love. And sometimes sometimes you put so much into it. It's just like, is this even worth it? And I think at one point Gaz was like, do I really want to continue doing this? But so I thought that was kind of where he had mentioned something like that. He was kind of unsure if he wanted to continue or whatever. And then when I heard that that's pretty much what he's been doing, I was like, oh, cool. And that leads to our topic, which is basically comic books. Love them, hate them, whatever. I mean, it's kind of the medium we love to hate, but we keep. It's like that scene from, I don't forget which Godfather movie it was, but that keep pulling you back in.
Yeah, just when I thought I was
trying to get out. I don't know if I've tried to get out, but it is. I mean, it's just like
Well, you and me, Scott, are in a very similar situation too, where we both have like a limited series where like there's an endpoint that we started years ago that we're kind of still working on in between doing a million other things.
Yeah. And with me, even though I finished the final issue is done, other than the covers, and I've still, and just that little last bit I've been putting off. I've actually got it in front of me right now. One of because I'm going to do a couple covers because I'll do a single issue in the trade. But I kind of know when I want to launch the Kickstarter for it next year. But even then, I got to get on it, so I got to prep for that. So, but I'm excited to finally, wrap everything up. But it's
getting not just the last issue, but getting that collection. Yeah, that's gonna feel great.
And I've always said that once, and that we'll talk about that too, is that monetarily, is it worth it?
No,
but I think
absolutely not. Definitely not.
We'll get to that. But like I've always said that once I get that collection, then I'm going to really like start to promote it. Because up until now, I mean, the goal was always to have the whatever you call it, trade, graphic novel, whatever, however you want to call it. But I needed those benchmarks as the single issues to get to that point, or else it would never get done. So, and I always said that once I get that, then I'm hopefully I will really promote it and everything. So hopefully I can. I don't feel ever, match up to all the time I put into it.
That's more what I meant. That you might make a good chunk of money, but like if you add up the hours, it's not. And I'm saying that for all of us to a certain extent. I'm not bragging on you specifically.
And now we've got Cory. We finally, just like Cory's been unsuccessful pulling me in to do an animation, but finally we got him to go and do a comic. So we're all here doing comics now.
I started it. I started in comics.
Well, I know, but you've always been doing different things. I think since pretty much you've done you've done a anthology story and stuff like that since we've known each other and everything. But again, that's what we're talking about. You always get brought back into it. So that's kind of where Cory is.
Also, Cory's fast, at least by my estimation. How quick he's getting these pages out.
I think. If I'm counting correctly, and if I finish these 4 pages when I expect to, I think I'm averaging about a finished colored and lettered page every 2.5 days.
That's very impressive.
So, that is impressive. I'm averaging a inked page every 2 weeks. So
that's not that bad either. when you're a one-man shop, so we can't all be.
No, but I'm saying already penciled, just the inks. 2 weeks.
I'll tell you that my secret is don't draw any people. Just have everything be an insect, and very few people will have enough knowledge to tell you if your anatomy is incorrect.
That's true.
So that helps a lot. I don't have to sit there and go, from this angle, what would, and I'm like, nope, doesn't matter. It's a weird shape, and I'm going to make it a weird shape, and no one will know.
Yeah, and specifically insects, I guess, too, because I literally was just working on a cat, and I had to get reference for the cat. It wasn't no, I'll just do whatever. But you're right, with an insect, put a couple blobs and extra couple hairs. Who's gonna know?
I mean, I've got tons of reference, but yeah, it's also nice because you can own resin insects. So I have several insects encased in resin, and so if I need a specific angle, I can hold it up and move it around. And so anyway, but yeah, it's
so Cory, are you saying basically you're waiting to draw people till you have a person encased in resin?
That's how that kind of isn't that that's sort of the bodies exhibit, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh man, I got in so much trouble at the bodies exhibit. So it came to where I am, and I was like, oh sweet, reference. And so I took out my phone and I started taking tons of pictures, and then all of a sudden I'm surrounded by 6 security guards, and I was like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, give us your phone. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like,
give us your phone.
They're like, you're not allowed,
it was like that in Los Angeles too. In LA when it was here, same kind of thing. And what's funny is you always kind of worry they're going to be making you the next part of the exhibit, if you don't comply. Yeah.
Didn't they have things posted saying that you weren't allowed to take pictures?
Yeah.
I don't read stuff in places like that.
Me neither, but okay.
Yeah. No,
Cory's if I'm ignorant of the law, then it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. So anyway, so I was like, I'm not going to give you my phone, but now that I know the rule, you can watch me delete the photos if you want. Anyway, they didn't know how to handle somebody not just automatically bowing to their authority. But I'm like, you can wrestle me to the ground if you want, but I'm not just going to voluntarily give you.
Again, Cory, you have strange near-death incidents. The last thing you want to do is risk being the next Body Worlds exhibit. Okay?
I will say this one
Play
more
nicely
time.
with their security.
I am fine in most of those situations. It's the people around me that are not okay. So
I also feel like there's a middle ground between yes, sir, here's my phone, and I'm ready to fight you. Get on the ground. I feel like I wouldn't hand over my phone, but I would not be looking to wrestle either. I'd sort of be like, all right, how about I delete him, or how about I just leave, or how about
and that's what I did. I was like, okay, that's fine. We can.
Were you disappointed it didn't end in fisticuffs?
I was disappointed I didn't have a bunch of really cool reference photos that I could use.
Yeah, that was a really stunning exhibit for sure.
Yeah, it was cool.
There's a bunch of people in chat, but I can see they're chatting, but I don't see what they're saying. I don't know if anybody keeps an eye on that.
Yeah. Dylan said Cory was yelling pose to the pieces to get in different angles.
I've been putting some of those up on the screen. Dylan also called me John Hammond because my resume.
Because you're Amber. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good stuff there. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I can't remember how we got onto the bodies exhibit, but that was my
somehow about
you do insect comics and you have insects and resin.
There
resin.
we go.
There you go.
Right.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway.
So Gaz, how long have you've been away from working on the 4A4 and what kind of brought you back?
Not needing to necessarily make money is part of it because I'm not going back to like making. Yeah, will I eventually sell these comics and will they make a non-zero amount of dollars? Yes, but I don't need to be making money right now. I'm in a fortunate position where my wife makes enough money that if I don't bring anything in, that's fine, and I'm watching the kid most of the time, so I'm kind of like, pulling my weight in other ways. But I still like want to make money. And I'm like, I sell prints, that makes money. I take commissions, that makes money. I was doing those Ultraman sketch cards, which working for the company doesn't make a lot of money, but the commissions were getting pretty pricey with what people were paying me. But the demands were getting pricey too, where it was like, I'm doing a sketch card, but it's taking me like 2 days, but I'm getting paid well for it. But I was like, I don't enjoy this. Not that I don't enjoy doing Ultraman, but I'm like, I was just trying to make money just to make money. And like, I don't know. Let me back up a little bit. Money is only part of it. The other thing is I like doing prints of Godzilla. I like doing Ultraman cards. I don't want to make it sound like I didn't. But I think at the end of the day, time marches on. We're all going to die. And for whatever amount of time I may be remembered living or dead, it's going to be for a comic I did. It's going to be for a story I did. It's going to be for a character, a message. No one in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years is going to be like, hey, remember that cool Godzilla print? Or like, hey, I got this one Ultraman card. Like if I was working for Marvel and I was on a run of Spider-Man for a few years, then I might be remembered for that or whatever. But like, I don't know, it just sort of seemed like kind of pointless. And that sounds a little nihilistic because I do enjoy it. And I like when people like my work and I like getting money. And I have a small amount of notoriety in certain circles that I'm not taking for granted. But I just, like kind of you said, the siren's call of like, well, two things. One is that I felt like this is the most worthwhile thing I could do artistically is put something out of in my own voice, even if it's as frivolous as a giant monster story. At least it's my giant monster story. And the other thing is just hating myself for never finishing it. Just the idea that like I started it and never finished it. Like even if I finish it completely and it's not that great and everyone hates it and no one buys it, I'll still feel better than if I never finished it. So those are the two. I don't know. That's probably more than you needed to hear, but that's kind of
that's great. That's actually some great behind the scenes. It makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, kind of leaving behind a legacy because I as much as I've kind of pushed back the fan art stuff. I recently started doing these wax pack trading cards, which is essentially fan art, and then sometimes I'll get commissioned to do stuff like this, which is fan art. I mean, it's for something like that they don't get a license, but like when I do a sketch cover, not a sketch cover, but a variant cover, they get a license. It has to go through the So I've done a little bit of that stuff, but like the trading cards and stuff I do are essentially fan art. So and people people aren't necessarily buying those. Well, even less that because they don't even half the time most of it's is graphic design more than illustrations. So but like I could see somebody buying your Godzilla print because they like the style. So there's a little bit of that. But
there is. And like I said, I'm not trying to take that for granted if people enjoy my style of artwork. That is gratifying but it's more transient. It's not going to last, and nothing lasts. I mean, I'm a little bit of a nihilist in that way. I'm an optimistic, happy nihilist where I'm like, but in 100 years, even the most famous artists will be forgotten. And in 1,000 years, maybe the sun will explode and none of this matters, but there's levels to how much things matter. And because I think about it, I've definitely bought prints from artists at shows that I thought was really good art. And maybe I saw them for a few shows for a few years, and now I kind of forget who they were, But if I read a story that I liked or saw something original, like I'll remember that the rest of my life.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me. Because I think all of us have had like really similar journeys with that kind of thing, like where, commercial art is great. And I love getting paid to draw. That's one of the funnest things in the world. Like I got to draw a robot this weekend for money and that's going to be fun. Like I like drawing robots. It's fun. But I've done tons of commercial art for, 20 something years. I think we all have got racked up a similar amount of doing commercial art. And I never feel quite as good as I do about the books I've completed. Even the ones that like 3 people have, more than 3 people, but not that many more. Like a very small amount of, I have a very small audience, but I feel just personally better about those things because that's kind of where my soul resides.
Absolutely. And even like doing your own work is a whole nother level, but like going back to like thinking about stuff I've done, like I've been way more financially and like popularity wise successful doing Prince of Godzilla work than I have with comic stuff. But I've done a number of published comics that I got paid for that I didn't write. I just drew, but I still enjoyed it. And when I think about those books, I'm like, in a way, I'm a lot more proud of those books that nobody's ever seen than I am of my stack of prints sitting next to me, even though
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so why do you think that is? That it feels. Sorry, Scott. I don't know if you had another thing lined up, but to me, I'm like kind of curious, and then maybe we can, after Gaz, like I'll go around and say maybe why we think that is, because I think all of us have a similar experience where none of us are making a good chunk of our money on comics. So what is it that makes the comics feel more substantial or significant? I mean, you kind of touched on it with the remembering cartoonists, like when you've read a book. What else? What do you think it is?
I think that answer could be anything. Like it could be a different answer. There's no wrong answer to that.
Yeah.
I'll give two possible answers for myself. One in my cynical present day is just like it's hard and not everybody could do it. And it's work. Even no matter how good you are, no matter how much you like it, it's really hard and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you gotta pace yourself. And like every page, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to draw that. And I got to learn something brand new. And it's kind of grueling. And so there's something satisfying in like, oh, I did it. So there's that current day thing. And then my other reason would be I was a kid who loved reading comics and they were magical and the characters spoke to me. And one day I started realizing there were artists who did it. And I don't know that this was the first artist I ever liked, but I remember Todd McFarlane was the first name I ever knew. Like there was other artists. I'm like, oh, that's a person. And like, it became clear that like, oh, other people make this thing. So there's like a magical kid part of me that's like, I want to make the thing that was magical to me, so that like, it's hard and magical at the same time, I guess.
And so it's basically satisfying when you complete something. I mean, and that's the thing. It's kind of I think what we love about comics, and also, again, to the title of this episode, what we hate the fact that you put all this time into something, you present it to somebody, and they'll flip through it and say, "Oh, that's really cool," and then set it down. But don't take the magnifying glass to it. Don't look at all the little background things. Miss so much of the stuff that we put in it, and just they enjoy it, but they're never gonna.
But if you get 100 people that look at it and go, that's cool, and one person, maybe another artist who actually notices those things, it means the world. And in that way, it's like being in a little club. It's like being a stand-up comic or something where it's like anybody could tell a joke, but like if you're a stand-up, even if you're a bad stand-up comic, if you're out there on stage every night, a good stand-up comic will still kind of respect you and you're still kind of in the same club. And so like, like to be stupid and dramatic, like I'm in the same club as Todd McFarlane and I'm not, you know what I mean? But like more than someone who doesn't do comics, Yeah.
Yeah. I always say, like whenever I have friends, I've been saying it, but it's like, whenever I have a friend who puts out a book, it's like, congratulations, you're in the rarest cartoonist club in the world. Like, there are so many like cartoonists who aspire to do something and have never completed like a single comic issue. Yeah. And so that does put you in kind of like a special club of weirdos. and then, then people among that who've completed a trade or a graphic novel, that puts you in an even more kind of small class. And then you meet people like David Hartman, where he can do a perfect page in an hour and question your identity. But my point being, it does put you in that particular group, and that does feel good. I wonder about that myself. Like sometimes the older I get, the more I'm starting to realize, like, I think because now that there's the advent of AI and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's even going to put the question on cartoonists more and more of like, well, why labor, right? Mm-hmm. Why do why even bother? And to me, the answer does kind of keep tying back to something like a marathon or something like that, which you mentioned, Gaz, but it's like that does like ring true to me. Like, I think there's something in the human condition where for some reason, even if it's kind of silly and pointless, we like to put ourselves on a field and come up with an impossible game that we play, and by beating it, feel good. I don't know.
And we respect people that do things well. Like, it doesn't matter if you like it or not. Like, if someone, like, okay, I'm not into guns, let's say, but somebody that could clean a gun backward and forward with their eyes closed and like make perfect shots every time. Yeah. Like, that's impressive. It doesn't matter if I'm into it. I don't like football, but somebody that's amazing, like somebody that's really good at the thing they do is appealing. Yeah. And so we want to be good at the thing we do.
Yeah. Cory, what was your impetus for returning to the realm, and despite the odds of large financial rewards, being pretty slim, and even if they are large, like Gaz kind of pointed out, it might seem large, and then if you do the math, you're like, well, even if I make like ridiculous amounts of money on this, I'm still probably making less than McDonald's, for the hours put in. What brought you back?
I'll probably be a little bit of an outlier here. I think there's more potential for financial reward in comics than there is in animation. And I think comics are easier than animation. So yeah, I don't know. I did the animation thing for a few years, and it was fun. I learned a lot that I wanted to learn, and I won a bunch of awards, and ended up doing other people's animations, and I made really decent money doing other people's animations. But nobody cared about mine financially. And I don't know, I just like changing it up every once in a while. And I have this idea for this story, and I was trying to think, like, what's the fastest way that I could get this out? And I think, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but I think comics is probably the fastest way to get it out and keep my interest, because I'm doing the novel, right? So I got into a little bit of a slump. And so all of this sounds so insulting to so many different people. So nobody take this. This is all my mental illness. It has nothing to do with anybody else. But I thought I'm in a slump. I still want to do something creative, and so let me do something really easy, and I'll write. And so that's Heart of Eternity is it's me trying to stay creative while having like a total breakdown of productivity visually.
Well, and I think you could defend that position easily, because you're not insulting writers necessarily. Because I'm working on this, and I'm trying to stop myself from writing another story. And it's not that writing is easier; it's that it's something different. It's a different part of your brain. It's a different project. So I don't think you're insulting anybody by saying that.
I'm gonna just be insulting and say writing's easier. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say it.
What I do find about writing, and I mean the writing I'm doing, Jeremy described it well. He said it's a vomit draft. It's like it's my first draft of everything. I think it's pretty good, but it's not like I'm like laboring over it. I'm rewriting it 50 times to make sure that every word and every syllable is good. It's it's just getting it out there. But like, if I want a crowd scene, and I've written quite a few crowd scenes, you just write it and then it's done. So it is significantly easier than, like, if I wanted, like, the scene I'm drawing right now, I had to go and look up what like a 1950s kitchen would look like.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas if I'm writing it, I would just maybe describe, the olive green refrigerator or something, and everybody would get the idea, or even just say what it is or whatever. Anyway, it's kind of like when I shot the live action portion of Shades after spending like 3 months animating the animated portion. And I was like, I just tell the actress to walk over there and she walks over there and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a week, like a week of animating. Whereas it's literally just me saying, let's try it like this. And then people just do what you say and you film it and you're done. So to that aspect, I do think writing is significantly less labor intensive. So anyway, long story short, too late. I felt like I took enough of a break from illustration and design and animation, like all the visual things that I had been doing, to where I had built up enough energy to like take something on again. And I've been wanting to get back into comics for, I don't know, about 12 years. I mean, I taught myself how to draw when I drew The Mixed, and did about 60 pages of that, and had to get my master's degree. So I had to stop doing that web comic, and I've always wanted to go back to it. And it just felt right. And it also is financially, like, my wife and I decided that I wasn't going to take on any more client work this year, which tends to be pretty draining. And so, I just had a lot more creative energy, and it's been awesome. And I feel like, when I was first learning animating, I could sit down and animate something for like 5 or 6 hours, take a couple breaks for water and to stretch and stuff, and I'm good to go. And I'm back in that level of productivity where, I can go till, 3 or 4 in the morning and still and have to choose to go to bed rather than be like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted or I'm so tired. It's like, okay, well, to be a responsible adult, I should probably be asleep now.
Yeah, that's always an interesting one, where at first the struggle can be to just kind of sit down and do the work. And then once you kind of get in a flow, the struggle is like, how do I maintain kind of pushing myself to a reasonable standard for myself, but at the same time, like, maintain sleep patterns and, stop when I need to,
Right.
I've Gaz, you do a lot of, vlogs and stuff where you will cover kind of that struggle to like kind of maintain the time to do the book, and then also within those time frames, like maintain like a reasonable stopping point. Have you found the perfect balance for that with comics?
Hold on a second. My daughter just walked into the room. I'm sorry.
No worries.
It's actually a good example of
Yeah.
time juggling,
I thought he was kidding for a minute as an example.
Yeah.
Because that is the perfect example. So yeah, I just to kind of riff for a minute. Comics is really fun, and I think part of what I was hesitating with is like, in my mind, I have like this certain ideal of what I wanted to be able to do visually before I got back into comics, and I'm still not there.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know what? I like drawing bugs. Everybody's going to be bugs. So, that kind of, I still can't, I can draw people, but it will take me, that would be like a page every 2 weeks rather than a page every 3 days.
That's my kind of schedule.
Yeah. And that's where I'm not interested in spending the next 5 years telling this story. So
why not, Cory? Join us. Well,
what I tell myself, no, Cory has an excellent point. And what I tell myself, which falls apart when I see that Josh is not, Josh is faster than me, but not significantly enough. But what I always tell myself is like, if I just really do this and work on just comics for hours every day, I'm going to get faster. I'm gonna get. And I keep telling myself that. It hasn't happened yet, but like I delude myself into thinking like if I got a job for Marvel doing Quasar and I had to do a page a day, you know, by the end of the year I'd be like fast and good, you know. So I'm just gonna try to make myself do that, and I still say it. I don't know. I still believe it. But the data doesn't back me up. It's a very faith-based thing I got going on here with my comic.
Well, what is it? First you get good, then you get fast, and then you get good and fast.
That's what they say. But I feel like
question.
I get slower and slower and slower. I get better, but I've never gotten faster.
Well, it seems like if you're going off of that quote, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it seems like you get quality and then you sacrifice quality for speed. And then you gain quality and speed. And you're probably like me. I'm not willing to sacrifice quality for speed. So like, I'm not, you know, like Jim Lujan and he often makes fun of me because of like, I'm going to animate the eyelid wrapping around the cornea as it moves, you know, and he's going to not. Right. And I don't think either of those is correct or incorrect. It's just for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in lowering the quality to increase the speed.
Right. No, I think you're right. Cause I think if I was drawing at the same level I was a year ago, 2 years ago, I would be faster.
Right. I was going to say that too. Yeah. Like that's my issue with that quote is first you get good, then you get fast. That's true. You get fast at the thing that you got good at.
Yeah, your old best you're fast at now, but that's not your current best anymore.
But then you get slow again because you know how bad what you were doing before was. So it's like a never-ending cycle of kind of like getting good, getting fast, and then realizing, no, I need to slow down because I can do better now. And then at least that's my
Inevitably, somebody well-meaning will say like, well, no one's going to notice that but you. And two things. One, well, I still notice it. But two, even allowing for that, certainly I've done work that I was paid for that people liked that I didn't like, but was professional quality. But as much as it's like, no one's going to notice that but you. However, I look at comics and I see mistakes and I see shortcuts and I watch videos of people pointing out the inconsistencies from panel to panel and blah, blah. It's like people do notice, maybe not everybody, but I don't want my comic to be the one that's getting reviewed and be like, well, it's pretty good, but look at how this and this, like, they're going to find things that are wrong with it already. I don't want to give them ammo, you know, like.
So this is an interesting thing because to me that highlights one of the things I love about kind of the liberation of giving up. In my mind, like this is a couple years back, but I finally, I kind of finally came to terms with the fact that whether or not my comics are successful, I'm just going to be doing comics and I'm going to be making the best comics I can. And if I'm not making the best comics I can, then I should stop doing comics because there's no other reward than the work in my mind. Like the other stuff is never going to be equivalent to making the good work. And the good work is the reward. Like to me, the book is the reward, the memory of the book. You know, I don't look at my 2 graphic novels and love the one that sold more better. You know, I feel equally proud about both of them because they were the best I could do at the time. And I never look back at those and go, man, you know, or feel bad about them. So like I've come to terms with that as like the reward's the work itself, but it's a
healthy attitude.
And it's to me, I screw myself over of the reward if I allow myself to make shortcuts I'm not okay with. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the shortcuts that you make for a client. That's the shortcut. It has to be done today, and you make those shortcuts. Yeah. But it is a trap a little bit because like there's the diminishing returns thing, which I talk about all the time because I fall prey to all the time. Like I don't want to make shortcuts and I don't want to let things go that I know I could do better. And it's always like, oh, that face looks a little off. I redraw it. Great. It's 25% better. It still looks a little off. I redraw it. Well, it's 12% better. I redraw it. And now I've spent an hour redrawing the face. And the first 10 minutes I made the correction. And the other 50 minutes I made it 1% better.
Yeah.
And that happens it's hard to find that line of like, where is I'm putting in my best effort versus I'm wasting time.
Yeah. Or versus I'm spending, because like there's painters in art history who would spend, a year on a single oil painting, and it's like, so are we going to be able to make comics and do that for one panel? It's like, that's just not. So it is, you're right. There is like this point where you kind of have to be okay with letting go, like I think Gary talked about this too, where it's like, he was struggling where he's making pages he's really proud of, but he had like a month when he was doing his last book where he felt kind of depressed because he was like imagining how good one page could be if he had spent like 2 months on it. And then it's like, wait a minute, why would I spend 2 months on one page? Like, that's not, that would give me, 12 pages a year. So, by the time I'm dead, I'd have maybe a one book or something,
Well, and I tried that.
Yeah.
So when I was doing Esoteric Crumble Flux, the point of that was to see how good of a drawing I could do just a single image. You know what I mean? Like, I really wanted to push it, and I learned a lot, and I think I leveled up and I got a lot better. But I don't know that I got any more response, or I touched any more people, or I got any more people interested, or it was, and I definitely didn't get more people like looking longer at those images. Like, there's images that I put together in an hour, and then there's images that I put together in 22 hours. Yeah. And people spend the same 15 seconds looking at them, and that's if they're really studying it. It's like, cool. So yeah, it is kind of interesting with all of that, but so why, I'm kind of curious, Scott and Gaz, why are you still coming back to finish your series? Like, you guys have been working on this off and on for a long time. And I ask this for two reasons. One is I'm curious, and I'm sure you guys both have good reasons and interesting reasons. Two is I got 60 pages into a story, 12 years ago. I had to take a break for a year and a half, thinking that I would come back to it and finish it. And then I was such a different person and a different artist by the time I had time after my master's was done to come back and finish it, that I was like, I either redo all 60 of these pages or I'm never touching this story again. So I'm kind of, because it was like, I was 20% of the way through. It was like a 300 something page story. I had gotten through chapter 1 in 60 pages and realized that in the hero's journey, like, they just accepted the challenge. That's how long it took me to do that. And then I lost all motivation to like add good art to what I considered to be really bad art. And so I'm kind of curious, after years and leveling up, how do you do that? Why do you do that? Why not new stuff? Why old stuff? Because I did have to go through like a mourning process of like, am I still a good person if I just abandon this project? Like, I had readers,
which is a weird, it's not a moral issue, but you're right. That's how we think of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I had readers, because this is webcomics, right? This is like 2012 height of webcomics. Project Wonderful is going good. I had weekly readers that were coming and commenting, and then for 3 or 4 years after that, every couple of weeks, one of my old readers would come back and say, "Hey, you ever gonna get back to the mixed?" And yeah, so it felt like I was letting a small group of people down. But also I just that story was so crap compared to what I could do now.
Scott, you want to answer first, or you want me to?
Go ahead, Gaz.
The idea of not doing this and starting a new project has never even occurred to me. Yeah. I have other ideas and other projects that like I will allow myself to do if I finish this. But it's kind of like, if I couldn't even finish this, what business do I have starting a new project? Because I've started and stopped millions of projects in my life of all different kinds. And it's, and I think also what helps is that if this was one continuous book or webcomic like what you're doing, it feels like, oh, I'm going back to the middle of that thing. but I did 2 issues. This is the 3rd issue. And yes, it's all one big story, but it feels segmented, even if it's not.
Yeah.
And I also have always approached it, for better or worse, I might do it differently if I do another project, as production line, assembly line. I did all the writing. The whole thing is done, scripted, edited, all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And am I a better writer now? Maybe, I don't know. But the writer did it. The writer's done.
Yep.
Then the breakdowns, then the pencils. And like the pencils for this are all done. And I did them like 2 years ago. And I find myself making little corrections as I go, you know, but not too, but I'm like, the writer wrote it, the penciler penciled it, now I'm the inker inking it. I don't like, and so similar when I would do the next issue, like, let's see what, and if there's a huge glaring problem, I'll correct it, but I'm not trying to be, I'm honoring the vision of the writer that I used to be, I guess is the best way to put it. And but to your point, I had an idea for another story, which I don't know if I'll do because I'm a very different person now. And it was just sort of like the outline of that story. And I don't think I want to do that anymore. And it doesn't appeal to me the same way. And maybe if I was just starting to write this story now, I might feel that way. But again, I'm thinking of it as this is the project that version of me started, and it is as hard as it is to go back. It seems easier to complete this than to start something new. Sure. And there's something interesting, like I have ideas of like, if I ever show this or give it like a talk at a convention or something and I have it done, I could be like, oh yeah, this book took me like 10 years to do, or whatever ridiculous number it ends up being. And you could see issue 1 to issue 2 to issue 3. There's like years of progress in between them. That's kind of a weird artifact that most comic artists don't have. And on top of all of that, when I finally put it together into a collection, I'm not going to be redrawing 50 pages, but I'll probably go through real quick and just, spend a couple months doing revisions on anything that's exceptionally egregious towards the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I mean, there's been times where I didn't know if I would ever get it done, but there was never a point. I don't know. There's never a point where I didn't want to finish it. I was just like, I just didn't know if it was possible. But then you get closer and you get closer, and then you get to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, this thing is I'm going to actually have this thing completed. And, and part of it is because, like all of us here, it's not like our main thing, I wouldn't run if I had a huge following, I wouldn't run like a Kickstarter not having any artwork done. If there was a situation where somebody paid me to do it, is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
That would have been a different story. Then sure. You're kind of beholden to, people that help finance us and stuff, where I still feel a little beholden to people that just the public in general that know that hopefully this thing will be done and they want to read it. But right. It would be a little different if there was actually somebody paying for it, but still it's like, I don't know. And not that I've ever started something and decided it isn't worth it for me to continue. I think and here's what I'm all over the place, but I think here's the thing. There's certain projects that I start and then I just realize it's not worth it to me continue because it's either financially or whatever. There's something I'm not getting out of it. But with comics, that's not the case, because I already know that chances are I'll never recoup whatever cost and time I put in it. There's more to it for me doing the comic. So that's kind of out of the equation as far as like, I'm not going to stop because it's not going to make me any money. I'm too into it. So the other thing is, I said I was going to do this thing, and I'm with most things. If I really say I'm going to do something, I'll do whatever it takes to get it done. And the fact that I never said when it was going to be done, it was probably good, because that would have been a little different if I had said, I want to get this done, in a year or two. Then
I've made that mistake.
So
and I guess it's a little different. You guys already knew how to draw. Like I mean, my first comic was me learning how to draw.
Yeah. That's a much different, I think, scenario. I mean, not entirely.
Did you have it written to the end? Like, did you know where you could end it, or were you have to figure out where to end it as well?
I knew how to end it, but I didn't. So I don't script things very heavily. And so I have a basic idea of scenes. I'm kind of like, I can't remember who it was. Lynch, I think, was like, get a bunch of 3x5 cards, write the title of each scene. You have 72 of those and you have a feature length film,
Right.
And I kind of have that. Right. And so I had that, but, and I knew roughly what was going on. And even when I finished my master's, I came back and I rewrote the first chapter. And I know that what I wrote is significantly more interesting, more action-packed, and a lot better. The story's better. Yeah. Like the craft of it is better and everything. But then I started, so my thing is like, because I'm doing this on my free time, this is what I'm doing for fulfillment, for fun, for satisfaction, for like not being a useless consumer, right? I will abandon projects now, if I'm not getting something out of it. Kind of like you said, Scott, I was thinking of Ye Olde Modernity. I thought that might be interesting to do like a gag a day comic. And it turns out it was really boring. I did 4 of those and I was like, I don't care about this. And I remember Jim Lujan reached out and was like, hey, how often are you going to put these out? And my answer probably sounded a little bit flippant. It was true though. It was like, oh, just whenever I feel like it, like whenever the mood strikes me to hit this. And it turns out the mood struck 3 times and then I didn't care about any of it. It was just like, man, it's not as interesting as a long form story. So anyway.
And on a base level, based on what you're saying, like you weren't happy with the product you're making, whether it was the art or otherwise. And like, even though I made a point of saying like, oh, that other version of me wrote this, like I still enjoy this. I still like the character, the subject matter, to the point where when I finish, I know the next 2 books I can make, the next 2 story arcs I could do. I haven't written them. They're just like outlines in my head. If I do this and it gets any kind of good reception critically, where people are like, this is great, we'd like to see more, then I'll probably do more. If nobody cares, then I'm going to go a different direction. I have another story idea, but I like it enough. Like I would like to read it. It's interesting to me, still even now.
Yeah. I love that point because to me, there's a couple things. Like one is if you're going to do a comic and you're watching this and you're going to delve into the addictive territory of making comics, pick something you want to see out there. Like, because like that's going to drive you through crazy times and cause you to really stick with the thing. The other thing is I think that what Cory mentioned about learning to draw might actually be kind of important as well, because I don't know, Gaz, what your experience is like, but when I was starting, in my early 20s, I spent a good amount of years from like 20 to, from like 18 to 27 or 26. Or maybe 25, but it was a good like 4 or 5 years of just, okay, I'm going to be a cartoonist. Here we go. I've got my idea. I spend half a year on page 1, making page 1, going, it's not good enough, throwing it away, making page 1, it's not good enough, throwing it away, maybe getting 5 pages into a project, maybe 10, and just scrapping. And eventually about 5 years into that, after working professionally for a bit as an artist, because I was like, oh, well, when I get good enough and I start working professionally, then I'll make comics. I had that like wake up call of like, is this a pattern? Like, am I going to just, you know what I mean? Like, am I just like, if I'm calling myself somebody who wants to do comics, like the big trick to that is to be somebody who makes comics. Like that's the big magic
and
trick
that's
to all the guys I admire.
Is better than perfect mantra that I try to say, some version of that, like just get it done, just get something done. And this is a story I've told before. When I decided to first do the first issue of the horror. So, it's a million years ago now, but I think about it constantly with this, but with anything. Having a project completed is more impressive than the best maybe gonna do a project ever. And I was at a convention years ago and there were people selling these comics which were not good. They were bad art. The story seemed like, and they were like happily, proudly selling their comic. And I had some prints of zombies.
Gaz is like, and they were like Scott Serkland and Cory Kerr and Joshua Kemble.
Yep. No, but like it's a subjective thing. But most people would say it was amateurish. Let's put it that way. And it was subject matter I didn't really like, and they were younger people, and I was kind of looking down on them because objectively, by most metrics, people would say I was a better illustrator than they were. My prints were better art than the covers of their comics. Most people would agree to that in not in subjective terms, but just in terms of skill and perspective and shading and whatever.
Yeah.
And like halfway through that show, and I was probably making more money than them too, because prints make more money than comics on average. And I suddenly was like, yeah, but they have comics. They did 22 pages of more than one comic. They did that. Who am I to judge? Like, they did more than it might not be good, might not be what I want, but it is better. Their comics are better than my comics because I don't have comics. They win. They've done it. They've succeeded. And I tie that back, I'm not a musician like Josh is, but I've played music, and my crappy little bands put out a couple CDs. We recorded some songs. We played some shows. And I know people that are way better musicians.
Yes.
That, like, we're always in the middle of composing this perfect song. And I'm like, yeah, but you've never played in front of people. You've never recorded anything.
Yep.
And so, not that I think I'm better than them, but I feel like it's just like, it's better to do the thing badly than to try to perfect it forever.
Dude, I agree with that music analogy too, because, I think you and I both have similar backgrounds in playing in bands that never quite blew up, but we had, small shows.
You're a much better musician than I am. I'll say that, but yeah.
Well, anyhow, but we had small shows and gigged around and stuff. And I know we both share that. So but the interesting thing is when you do get involved in a music scene where you're actively doing it, like you're making music, you're playing live, doing that. You always stumble upon the guy who just smokes everybody on guitar. He's like a shredder and he can play anything. And yet the guy never writes anything, and it's like, but they can do every lick on the guitar neck, and pretty much bury everyone,
it's a person like that who's never could stick with a band.
Yeah.
Because they can't just, have a practice schedule. They can't deal with the way the drummers, they're an amazing musician that can't work with anybody for some reason.
So it's kind of like the illustrator, which we've all done professionally too, but it's like the illustrator who can do the flourishes and beautiful illustrations, but they don't have all the other things that are involved in comics, which is like a totally different game than just doing flourishes and pretty illustrations,
And to bring I agree. And to bring it back, what you were just saying about the band stuff, you were including me in that club with you, even though you were a better musician, a more successful musician, whatever, because I played some shows, I wrote some songs, and it's what I was saying about stand-up comics, what I was saying about putting out comics.
Yeah, you did
the work. Well, you've done the thing. To some degree, we're in the same club more than other people. Yep. And that you just proved my point. Because I suck. But we did it. We both did it.
Yeah, and I'll say this, our good friend Kevin Cross, had a lot of success as a musician, and yet I've never had a time where Kevin was like, "You're not a legit guitarist," or I'll share with him songs I recorded, and he's not like, "Well, this wasn't released it's because he likes music, so he'll just check it out and go, "Oh, cool," you're right, it is kind of a club, and that's the magic trick is doing the thing. Yeah. But as to why is a really good question. I don't know. So should we get into the hate them now that we've gushed about? Well, I don't know if we've gushed about our love for them, but
yeah, I was going to say, I think I know why. It gets a little bit either spiritual or existential based on, your viewpoint of reality. But I think that's what we're here to do. Yeah. Whether you believe that we, are spirits inhabiting, a body right now, or whether you believe that we are, intelligences or entities, in some sort of, non-governed universe or whatever. Either way, the point of this existence is to have experiences. And so the point of this existence is not to, this is what I'm worried about with AI, with augmented reality, with virtual reality, with all of this garbage. Most of it, the end result of it is people disconnecting from physical experience, is not using their bodies, not using their minds, having other people program them. But the difference between listening to music and creating music is significant. The difference between reading a comic book and making a comic book is significant. Like, I love reading comic books and I love listening to music, right? They're awesome, but there is something untouchable and almost indescribable about the sacrifice that you have to make to bring something into reality, to like create it. There is figurative and sometimes literal blood, sweat, and tears, right? They're literally like, I am sacrificing some of my life force. I'm sacrificing my back and my shoulders and my time. To a certain extent, there's the economic principle of opportunity costs, all of the other things that I could be doing with that time. I'm sacrificing the money that I could be making by getting a second job. I'm sacrificing, relationships and so the amount of quantifiable and unquantifiable effort and trade-off that come into creation. And that's just me sitting down and drawing a page. That doesn't even include the literal decades that it's taken me to get to the point where I can think through and have the muscle memory and ability to bring that about. And so there is something so much more significant about creation than there is about consumption. Consumption is easy, and literally, if you do it too much, it harms you.
Right? And it can be like addictive in a way that doesn't produce anything. Whereas if you're addicted to production, at least you're like, worst case scenario is like you're going to burn out, but you're going to make a bunch of stuff on the way. You're going to hurt
people even if you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So I think when we're asking like why that is, I think we are programmed to do that. I think one of the main things that differentiates human beings from the rest of the animal kingdom is our ability to reason and be creative. Right?
Yeah.
Because when you look at other animals and it's like, oh, that animal uses tools. Yeah, sort of. It's banging a rock against a shell. So yeah, I guess you could call that a tool, right? Or this animal can communicate. Yeah, kind of. But like, then you get to the level of humanity, and it's like, why is it that we have such complex and intense and ridiculous ways of creation, reason, creativity, and communication? And then you're going to use that to be a consumer and only a consumer. That's not what we're here for. Human beings are hardwired for creativity, and not just like thinking of creative things, but executing those creative thoughts. And so I think that there is a whole biological imperative, or if you're coming at it from my perspective, a whole divine kind of command to create. And you're rewarded physically for doing that. Like, you get the dopamine, you get the serotonin. There's a level of satisfaction that comes from the effort of putting things out into the world that you don't get in any other way.
And I want to tack on, because Cory didn't quite touch the existential point, so I'll just be a nerd and bring up the existential backing for it. It's there's one of the classic existentialists, and I always mispronounce his name, Sartre. Sartre. Okay. This is Sartre. It just sounds so much more fun. But anyhow, so he had one of his primary works was like writing about the myth of Sisyphus. And, the Sisyphean myth is like the guy who's rolling a boulder perpetually up a hill. And every time he gets the boulder up, he's cursed by the gods, right? Because he's too ambitious. And so they curse him to basically spend eternity rolling a boulder up a hill, which will get up to the top of the hill and then roll back down, and then he has to start all over again. And that's like his eternal damnation, for trying to be one of the gods. That's like his curse. And Sisyphus, Sartre kind of makes the point, like, if you look at the world from an existential lens, that is our life. Like, we're basically rolling this boulder perpetually up a hill. And this ties in Gaz's thing about nihilism too. It's a little nihilistic. Sartre was a little bit, or Sartre. But anyhow, he talks about rolling the boulder up the hill is kind of our condition as human beings. We're inevitably just kind of rolling this boulder perpetually up a hill that we know is going to end with like no reward whatsoever. And even if we gain a reward, like we won't even be around to have it. So how then, like if we're in this world where we're in this existential situation of pushing the boulder, how do we exist? And he kind of proposes two options. One of the options I can't mention because it's against the TOS of YouTube. And then the other option is to come up with a way to take joy in the rolling of the boulder and creating significance of it, and creating meaning, right, in that experience, and somehow finding a way to convince yourself that even though the boulder is going to roll back down, somehow you're going to convince yourself it won't. And I think that's kind of the existential tie-in, is like, it's, picking a project like comics, or an art form is really like embracing the boulder and pushing it up the hill with faith that it's going to go somewhere, even though the high likelihood is that it will roll back down and you'll end up back where everyone who wasn't pushing the boulder is. But I think as artists, it's that act of like pushing that boulder that's my existential bent on it. I don't know, Gaz, if you want to chime in on that, but that's leave it to Cory and I to get.
Gaz doesn't like the woo-woo stuff.
No, I see both your points. I think there's validity to what you're both saying. The only issue I would take with it is the sort of blanket nature of the statements. I think they could be largely true or true for a certain segment of the population or people who are built certain ways, but there are other people which don't necessarily don't seem to have that imperative in them. And I'm not saying it makes them lesser or worse or evil, but different. And there are some people that are happy to just go for a walk every day and whistle a tune, and they don't need to be creating. And then there are other people who, will be crushed under the weight of that boulder they're pushing up. So like, there's merit to what you both say, and I'm not dismissing it out of hand. The only issue I take is this sort of like, again, the blanket nature of it.
I do
wonder though. I do wonder though, the people that don't do that, I really believe there's some sort of numbing or suppression to go on. Now, I don't expect everybody to make comics or do animation or whatever, but like, I think there's got to be some kind of creation.
I think you might be right about some of them, but we can't really know what's in their mind. And if they say they're happy, they might be lying to themselves, or they might be happy. We don't know. Like we all feel a certain way. So we're kind of looking at it from our point of view, and we all kind of, as different as we are, we have a commonality of that need to create, but not everybody necessarily has that. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to be fulfilled. And going back to like, I'm not big into the woo and whatever, as you called it. Like I do believe there's a certain amount of like, it's a cliche, but like, what is the purpose of life? It's the purpose you give yourself. What is the purpose of life? You make it a purpose. And
that's very existential.
Yeah, that's very Sarda. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be creative. The purpose of your life could be like, I'm going to make the best tomato. The purpose of your life could be like, I'm going to watch every episode of Survivor. The purpose of your life, it doesn't have to be a purpose everyone else agrees with.
Yeah,
it's just whatever you decide consciously or subconsciously. That like so. It's hard for me to think outside of where we are in the mindset we have to think what is the purpose for someone else or what is the meaning for someone else. But I believe that it is different for different people, and it's not the same, for everybody.
And I would agree that it's different for different people, but I think real quick, I would agree that it's different for different people, but I think ultimately at some point creation is a basic part of humanity. And so if you look at, just daydreaming, just dreaming at night, just telling a story, whether that be like you're recounting an event that happens to a friend, all of that is creation. And so on some level, to not lean into that, I think anyone is doing themselves a disservice. And again, I'm not saying that everybody needs to be a visual artist or a musician or whatever, but I think you lose a huge part of what it is to be human if you're not doing any creation. And I
kind of agree,
including a very broad brush of
I know what you're saying.
Conversation and imagination.
Yeah, I agree broadly, Cory, especially in realms of like consumption versus making something, and like, and that could literally be something as simple as just like making food, you know?
Sure.
So I'll agree with you there on like a blanket term, but I also agree with Gaz in the sense that I do wonder, much like Gaz was kind of mentioning, and maybe this can kind of touch on the hate thing with comics. I've definitely had times in my life where I've thought about friends of mine who just seem content to just kind of work their job, go home, clock out, watch a football game, like have a beer, and you know, that's it. They're good.
I think they're able to relax and turn off, and there's no guilt of like, I should be doing something.
And I'll hang out with them, and they're able to just sit and enjoy a conversation. And like, they're not thinking like, man, right now I'm like, I'm so behind on my book. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I have had those moments of wondering whether it is one of those things where innately they do have this thing they've suppressed, or whether we're kind of just as creatives, neurodivergent or strange in the sense that we have this compulsion, because everyone I know who makes comics, much like this panel was kind of expressing, has had a time where they almost even tried to get out, where they're just like, I'm gonna just stop because this is too much work. It's like, and there's something in us that just won't let us not. It kind of reminds me of that Chris Ware thing where I saw a speech where he was talking about how when you make comics, you're going to hate them. And he basically said this to a panel of young cartoonists who were asking for advice. And he said, I'm not saying that to dissuade any of you that are going to be cartoonists, because he's like, if you're going to be a cartoonist, you're going to end up doing cartooning. There's no talking you out of it, basically. And so I guess I'm saying I do see what Gaz is saying in the sense of I do question. I can see both kind of rationally working, where there could be a world where everyone who's seemingly in that contentment is really just lying to themselves and suppressing the story they're supposed to tell. Or it could be a scenario where we're off and for some reason have to do this thing, whereas there's maybe other people who are like watching the football game, coming home, you know, clocking out and feeling good.
To build on the whole like neurodivergent idea, if creativity is a spectrum, maybe we're on a higher end where we're like, I got to put a story out there. I got to create a thing. Maybe other people, maybe Cory's right, and everybody has something in them that they need to do. But for some people, it's like, oh, check it out. I mixed milk and pineapple juice today. That was fun, and that was enough.
And or I did a collage, you know, in my scrapbook.
One little thing, and maybe that satisfies the need. It's just like different levels of need.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, you know, but I do think that ties into at least the hate part of the convo, because there's definitely, I don't know if you guys have had it, but I've definitely had moments, you know, I can't say I'm not too far from a moment like that myself. I'm at 125 of 225, you know, for a book right now. And I've definitely had a few moments in the last like 2 or 3 pages of being like, what if I stop doing comics altogether? You know,
aren't you being paid for this one you're working on? Isn't this a client?
Yeah. This is for a client, you know.
But would you ever quit a client job?
I mean, generally not, but I've definitely had times midway through this one of going, is this worth it? Like, I'm investing a lot of time. It's going to be more serious.
Because to me, thinking about quitting your own project, even having put in tons of work, like that makes sense. That's whatever, you know. But like, if I was working on a book and I might be like, oh, this is terrible, I wish I didn't agree to do this, I wouldn't agree to do this again.
Yeah. But there's the obligation. Yeah. And there's no way I'm going to quit this one, but I guess my point is, you know, even kind of this, like, this was a book I pitched, you know, with a co-writer and stuff. So there's definitely that added thing of like, but also there's that thing of like, I want to make a beautiful book, like the client or not.
Right.
I'm not going to do this unless it's like, I wouldn't really do a comic for a client unless it was something I want to see in the world. Cause it's really not worth the work.
Right.
You know, So that's an interesting question though. Yeah, I wouldn't bail on a client with with that kind of thing. But I've definitely had thoughts of like, why did I get myself into this position of pitching this thing?
Yeah.
And I usually come back to the fact that, like I have a friend who mixes music and that's kind of his productivity thing, kind of backing up Cory's idea there. I think that's his like output. Like he makes music and he likes mixing other people's music and mastering and stuff. That's what he just has to do. Mm-hmm. He stopped music for 2 years and then wound up talking to a therapist who was like, basically told him, oh, well, you just actually have to do this like obsessive mixing of music for like ever, because otherwise you're going to be like not content. Like that's just your thing. And so he had to like take back up this like weird creativity thing because he just doesn't function without it. I wonder where we are on that, but it's an interesting question. And I do think it's important to have these topics because it, like, if you're starting a comic, you might feel like a lunatic if you're like hating the process because you're like, I've loved comics my whole life. Why do I hate this? Who's like, there's got to be people out there just having a blast doing it. And I think it's good to have that conversation of like, yeah.
Just like there's I say this like it's a fact. Just like there's a spectrum of how much you need to create. We've established that as a fact now.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's also a spectrum of how much you're able to enjoy making.
Yeah.
And this is old data, so I don't know if it's true, but Marsh makes comics. He's getting back into comics too now, I think. I haven't really follow him. But,
join us, Marshall. Join us again.
But and you maybe think he does music too, but years ago he had some show, podcast, whatever, and I was on there and I was saying how like, yeah, I hate drawing. It's so hard, blah, blah, blah. This, I'd be happier if I didn't do it. And he was like, what? I love drawing. It's so much fun to make comics. And it was like, and I don't think he was lying, know. But it's like that, again, there's a spectrum of like, how do you just enjoy it like that? Like I get excited about a new idea. There are moments in a page where I'm happy I did something successfully. Maybe I lose myself for a minute or two when I'm cross-hatching. And at the end, I'm proud of what I did.
Yeah.
But like most of it is hard work that's not fun. And to greater and lesser degree, we all feel that. But there are some people like him at that time. I don't know how he is now, but at that time, it was just like, it's just fun. I just do it. I can't wait to draw. And I love drawing. And it's like,
yeah,
what? You're like a different animal than me. Like, I don't understand,
I think I might have at least, and again, like we're, obviously going to speak in generalities or in specifics of our own situation with this, right? Yeah. Because I can't be everyone. But I do think that there's a thing to, and I think this is maybe the creative mind. Maybe this isn't all minds, but I think that definitely for somebody who's a creative, there's something to the joy of, like when I first started exercising, it sucked and it was awful and I hated it. And I still kind of hate it. But I also have started enjoying hating it. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's like, it still sucks to work out. It's still painful, but I've started to enjoy the process of it and even the pain of it because it's like rewarding and I'm doing something positive and I feel better afterwards. And so it's like, there's more to exercise than joy. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think there's more to creativity than just joy. Like, I think I do enjoy comics. And I kind of enjoy the parts that I hate because they make the parts that I love so much more worth it. Like if it was easy, I don't know if I'd be into it,
Right. I mean, being hard does make it seem more worthwhile, which is like a false belief, but it does feel that way.
I guess it's kind of like getting to the hard level of the boss level of a video game. If it's like too easy, you don't feel good after beating the level. I don't know.
That seems to be part of this existence as well, right? If you think about it, like struggle, we value struggle. We hate it when the protagonist of a story, is a Mary Jane or, whatever the male equivalent of that, where it's like, yeah, Mary Sue, sorry. Where it's just like, oh, they don't struggle. It's like, we don't like that. It's not fun. And to the same thing, like we don't value things unless we know that there's some level of difficulty or impressive amount of work or skill or whatever. Like, so there is something to that. And I mean, Daniel Pink wrote the book Drive, and he talks about the different things that cause motivation. And one of the main ones is like a constant state of improvement, like overcoming challenges and doing those types of things. I've been spending a lot of time on Reddit lately as I've been kind of exploring non-monopolistic social media channels. And I came across this really interesting one where this guy said, like, is this what life is? Like, I just go to work and then I come home and I lay in bed and I watch porn until I fall asleep and I just feel empty and miserable and horrible. And one of the comments was really interesting because you would think, you know, like, well, that's got to be pleasurable. He's getting everything that he wants, right? He's got money. He's like, I've got tons of money. I can buy whatever I want, you know, and I purchase things and I don't, you know, he's just like, I don't care. Right. And somebody came in and said, you're getting empty dopamine hits. Like, you need to turn off the porn and stop purchasing things and start doing something, because dopamine and serotonin are there as a reward for effort and achievement. Mm-hmm. And if you get it without effort and achievement, your brain knows somewhere deep down that it's an empty calorie. Like it's not good. And so I do think that there is value in, like, dude, that was freaking hard. And that took me forever. And I feel great about achieving that thing. And it's not that I necessarily was happy or enjoyed it, but there's a level of satisfaction and fulfillment that is like a foundational thing that will carry you through if you're getting real reward system that's based on what the reward is supposed to be for. Like, you are a good person, you treat people well, or you have worked hard and you have achieved a thing because of your effort. Those types of things are there. Like, you know, our reward system that's built into our endocrine system, our biological imperatives to make sure that we as individuals are functioning members of a society. And without that, if we shortcut that and we get the reward without the effort, it hurts us. Our brain knows that it's bad and we get punished for that, like mentally and you know, emotionally and those types of things. And so I don't think happiness or enjoyment is the reason that you would do any of this stuff. But I do think satisfaction and fulfillment are.
Yeah, and I think, like, this is weird. Maybe you guys will agree with this or disagree with this, but I think there's sometimes too much of a focus on happiness in life rather than a fulfilled life. So, like, to me, like, I would probably be a lot happier if I had gotten less education. And I don't mean that in like a snobby way. I'm just saying, like, you learn things about history that are uncomfortable, and then maybe they'd be fun not to know. Right. Like, maybe if happiness was my priority, I might be like, yeah, it's probably not important for me to know US history. You know what I mean? Because, like, I like my country, but the more I learn about it, you know, the more there's like dark and light to it. It's not like this perfect, pretty picture.
And that's why kids, generally speaking, are happy when they're young, because they don't know anything.
Yeah. So, like, if happiness is the end result, then we should all stay really ignorant and kind of uneducated and, you know, choose menial tasks to do for high rewards, you know? But it's like, I think there's more to life than happiness. And I think a good example is like in our group chats, right, that we have, how many of us are happily sharing, like, the thing we bought? Every once in a while we're doing that, right? Where it's like, hey, check out this cool thing I got. Most of what we're sharing is, oh man, I just completed a page, right? Like, it's like, or, you know, Jim sharing like mixing audio, you know, like, or Cory sharing like the creative thing he's doing. Why does that just feel so good to be like, hey, look what I made? You know, it's a cool thing. Or even Cory sharing his sauna.
I like that my example was really ambiguous. Jim doing this very specific thing, so-and-so doing this very specific thing, Cory doing whatever the heck Cory does.
You do so many different things.
Well, you do a lot of different things, but a good example is even if it's like building, like when you built the sauna, right? You were sharing that with like so much excitement, and I don't think you would have shared that if it had been just one that you bought and it was pre-made You know, you would have been like maybe one picture and be like, yeah, this is awesome. You know,
no, I freaking built that, man. Yeah. And then I tore part of it out and rebuilt it better. And I will talk. If anybody wants to have a very long conversation that they don't care about, ask me about the design for the benches that I did in the sauna. Because I totally agree. Like, I got excited about that because that was a problem that I had to solve that I didn't do right the first time. And then had some experiences with it, increased my skills, ability, knowledge, and the amount of tools that I own in my garage, and was able to like build something better. And even better than that, and this I think is another benefit of doing comics and animation and writing books and stuff like this, is every once in a while you get to see other people enjoy the thing that you built, and that is phenomenal. And so like, every time people sit on these benches in my sauna that I built, I'm like, yeah, they didn't creak this time. You know, like, like it's, I nailed it. You know,
like
or
the feeling of
that dude is like 60 pounds heavier than I am.
Yeah.
And they're fine. You know?
Yeah. Like if you cook for somebody and then they enjoy the food, it feels so good, as opposed to if I buy somebody dinner and they enjoy the food. I'm like, I mean, one feels a little better, you know, even though both have kind of a similar result where the person's fed, they enjoyed their meal. But I think the act of kind of making something and then having someone else participate in it is so much deeper than just happiness. I don't know. But sorry, Gaz, Cory and I are nerds. We've just been ranting.
No, that's fine. It's funny though, because like, again, I think with both of you, I generally agree with most of what you're saying, but I always have like a little like, well, what about because you know, I am a consumer for sure. I mean, look behind me, you can see all the toys.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you were talking about the group chats, like, I'm not in whatever group chats you guys are in talking about saunas and stuff, but I'm in a lot of groups online for like toy collectors. And most of what they do is say, hey, look what I got today. And everyone seems really happy about it. And people are happy for them because it's like, this is that hard to get figure that was going for $80 on eBay, but I found it at Ross 2 years later for $20. I can't believe it.
Do they do that if it was easy to get?
Still a challenge.
Yeah, no, sure. But I'm saying, there is still an acquisition there. And maybe it's a matter of saving up for it. Maybe it's finding a deal. Yeah. And then, but there is a creativity to it to some degree, because like I have these glass cases behind me. I have them set up a certain way. I posed them. I put together certain superhero teams that I'm trying to collect. Yeah. And some people don't do that. Some people just have boxes and enjoy them. And some people, you know, make mountains and light them and, you know, do all kinds of stuff like that. But it's funny enough, it all does come from just like spending money on plastic is what the common denominator is there.
I have no part of my life where I buy things that I don't need. Like, I don't own 19 guitars. I don't have a problem. It's for the art. It's for the music. That's what I keep telling my wife. That's why I need to get another this year.
I've stopped hundreds of times.
Yeah. And that's not a bad habit, where the prices range at the cheapest from 200 to at the top, like, you know, maybe 10 grand.
It doesn't matter though.
Not a problem at all.
It doesn't matter though, because like I have this werewolf figure that I love, right?
I really love it.
It's a great werewolf figure. This was a birthday present, but I know that it goes for $90.
Yeah.
So get me 3 or 4 of these. That's a guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it's all the same thing. It's whatever money you have, you either buy a lot of little things or one big. You know, it's all the same.
Yeah, and I think that I'm glad you brought that up, guys, because I want to clarify, like, you know, Cory buys original comic art, you know, and comics and stuff like that. I buy guitars and, you know, art and books and movies, and it's not like we're like anti-consumer.
No, but I do think it's more defensible, and I own some original art too, but it's more defensible to be like, I bought art. I supported an artist. This is art. This brings me joy. It's one of a kind, versus like, hey, I like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. You know, like this is a mass produced thing that's tugging on nostalgia for a product that's owned by a company, you know, but it still made me happy when I went, it's Tobey Maguire. You know?
But I guess that's my point, is like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just personally, like, for some reason, that has never been enough for me. Like, even buying guitar, like if I didn't play guitar, I would have less interest in buying guitar. You know, and even collecting things never quite feels as fulfilling as like making things. Like, I bet it would be really fun to actually make toys,
Oh, for sure. I would love to design toys. That'd be so fun.
Yeah. So I don't know.
To bring it back to comics, and we were talking about making money with comics. Cory was saying, you can't make money with animation either. And like Cory,
you can, just not your own.
Right. Yes. Like Cory, I've made money in animation working for other people, and I got paid way better animating for people than I did for doing comics for people or even illustrating for people. That paid very well. Yes. But I think a common thread is if you have your own book or your own animation, even the most successful, where you're going to make the money is in the licensing, a T-shirt, a toy, whatever. Because if you sell 100 books or you sell 100 action figures or 100 T-shirts, which one's going to make you more money? So. I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but I think it's similar with both, because there are people that have like animations online that got popular that they're giving away for free, but then it's like, oh, hey, buy a T-shirt of this fun animation that everybody likes, and that's where they make their money.
Yeah.
And one of my dream goals is to one day have like a Sofubi kaiju figure of the Horror 4.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And like, and I want it just because I want it. I want it on my shelf. I'd like other people. It's just something I want. But I also know that if I got to that point, that figure per unit would make me way more money than a comic, and it would be way less effort. Like, there'd be cost involved, but like a one-time design of that one toy versus 20 hours a page for 28 pages per issue. Like it's a no-brainer. But and this is the cynical part of me. I'm not saying this is how I'm thinking about it, but just realistically, then the comic is a commercial for the merchandise, or the animation is a commercial for the merchandise. And that's, I'm okay with that. I grew up in the 80s. That doesn't bother me.
I want to back you up on that. Like, I'm not one of those people who thinks it's bad to sell. I think it's bad to sell out, but I don't think selling is necessarily selling out unless it's against your ethic, right? Like, if I'm opposed to like something and then I start running commercials for it, I might be a sellout at that point. But if I'm like, a good example is like, man, a lot of cartoonists, like, Cory's a huge fan of Invincible. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you the paycheck given from Amazon was a lot bigger than what Image was giving. And I think they were raking in really good money for comics.
Yeah, it's a smash hit for comics is like nothing compared to the weakest TV show.
But that one check to get the license to just run that show and develop it and do a pilot and stuff, I bet was probably bigger, than anything that comic was getting. And that comic was probably getting significant checks because of the the TV deal for Walking Dead, right? It's so I'm not opposed to that. If somebody wanted to buy and develop something I worked on for a film, I'd probably take the money.
Oh, I absolutely
really subtle pitch there, Josh.
Yeah, I'll take the money.
Hey, so we are getting past our 90 minutes, but I didn't know if anyone had any closing thoughts or anything that they wanted to mention that didn't get covered before we start closing things out.
We haven't really talked about hate still, I think.
Well, I mean, I think we talk about. I think the whole conversation has been, our frustrations, and but I think it's a lot more frustrating. I hate that I have to like supplement things. Like, I have to wear an armband if I draw too long. It's right. It really does. Like, my back hurts. You know what I mean? Like I have to. I'm excited about my sauna, but I also had to build a sauna in my backyard because I was in so much pain from sitting hunched over in a C shape with my arms in front of me. You know what I mean? Like, it's Anyway, I just like to keep my mouth shut because I'm older than all of you guys, and for some reason I haven't had too many of those issues yet. So I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's genes.
I like how you pretend that you don't know what the reason is when you are very good shape and you constantly are running and
I ain't running in a
you
while,
eat well, you take care of yourself.
I don't know what's going on.
Who knows how this is happening?
There's sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go.
Well, I was gonna say I'm kind of looking at the chat. There's a lot of people chatting and having fun, but there's one person, Jochi, that keeps asking various versions of the same question.
What is it?
The most recent one says, does everyone use Photoshop or the digital workspace not matter because most are the same? And they were saying, does anybody draw on paper anymore? Basically just asking about digital tools, I think. Like I saw it a few times pop up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry about that. We'll address that. I mean, I have my issues with Adobe. But I'm kind of invested in it from, I've been using it forever. And to me, it's worth the investment. It's not worth it but the good thing is now there's so many other options. Like right now, I don't have it on my screen now, but I was drawing in Clip Studio Paint, which do you know how much that you can buy that software for? I mean,
not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, I mean, $100 or sometimes you can get it for $50 or whatever.
I'll do you one better. I have Photoshop. I have my subscription, but I barely use it. Most of my comics and even that cover I showed before, and like most of my work, I'm working on an iPad Pro. This is Procreate.
Yeah,
Procreate. Yeah. I forget what I paid for it, like $12, like 5 years ago. I don't even remember. Yeah. And it's 90% indistinguishable from the work I did in Photoshop.
Yeah,
I think it's 50 now.
Is it 50? Well, but I'm grandfathered in because they didn't ask me for like an update or new subscription or anything. It's still
and that's still the cost of 1 month of a full Creative Suite subscription.
Yeah, I think Affinity Designer is awesome as well, because it's like a one-time thing. Nobody really talks about it, but it's really good.
I like Photoshop.
Yeah, I'm using. I struggled with this. I had a whole debate in my head because one of the things I was like, I really want to do this on paper. Like I did a full 40-page children's book, The Tongue Cut Sparrow, and I hand drew everything, digital pencils, and then I print them out and ink it. And it took me a lot longer. And I mean, one of the reasons that I'm able to get the page count that I'm getting right now, and who knows whether I'll be able to maintain this, but like so far in the last 6 weeks, it's been that speed, or 4 weeks, I guess. But digital is just significantly faster for me, and so that's what I'm doing. But I love original art, and I am sad that I decided speed over having hundreds of pages that I drew,
which could also be supplemental income too.
Right? Yeah, that's the whole reason. Like this, this is the first thing I've done traditionally in a while because I knew that I would have that piece and I could probably sell it because there's a lot of people that are going to see this print. So that's that's the reason why I did that. So
I want to chime in on I like to use a hybrid depending on what the book is. So in this case, it actually just made more sense, like kind of akin to like what Cory and Scott were saying. I wanted to have this kind of toned Victorian look, and it just made more sense. Weirdly enough, even though it looks more traditional than a lot of my work, the thing I'm working on right now, that's specifically digital. And then my other books, like even, Jacob's Apartment and stuff, all of those pages are traditional. So this is like the cover art for Jacob's Apartment, right? And it's just traditional inks. So every page of that is a traditional page. Every page of 2 stories is a traditional page. But it just, to me, I think, and I think we probably all have the same answer to this, where it's like you want to pick whatever medium makes sense for the book you're working on. Because like I've definitely seen Scott work traditionally. He inks beautifully. I've seen him work, in multiple different programs. And the inking always looks pretty amazing. I don't know, but I'm curious about I really do want to mess with the iPad, like Gaz is doing. Like I've been really curious about that.
Well, this is the other thing I was going to say. In addition to it potentially being faster for workflow, I have a Cintiq right here, and this is what I used to work on whenever I wasn't working traditionally.
Yeah,
and I got the iPad I don't remember why I originally got it. This is my second one, and I got one kind of thinking I wasn't going to use it, and like maybe I was going on a trip or something. But this is answering a question. I think, Josh, you asked me before my kid came in like 45 minutes ago. This helps me be more productive because I can do it. I could go to a coffee shop and bring it. I don't need a bunch of pens. I don't need I have everything I need right here. But even more than that, when I'm making dinner, I'll put on some boiling water and I'll put this on the counter and draw for like 3 minutes. Or if I'm watching TV with the kid, I could get a little bit. And it's not this sustained big chunk of time where you really lose yourself, but I'm putting a few minutes in here and there, and it's progressing it along, and it's keeping me from getting too rusty. So the fact that this is everything I need to take it from blank page to full color, whatever, it has made me a lot more productive.
That's awesome. I don't know that it's just kind of seasoned to taste, whatever works for you, because like people have commented on my videos. Like I'll have a video where I start sketching on iPad, then I move into Photoshop, then I move into Clip Studio, then I move into Illustrator.
Right.
And people are like, why do you bounce around? And just like, I don't know. There's certain things that I think certain programs work best for this type of thing. Yeah. And another reason is because I want to show. Sure, I could have done all my sketch. I didn't have to do my sketching on the iPad. I could have sketched in the Clip Studio or whatever. But I want to show that you can use these different things. It's just whatever you want, So, but
for sure.
But yeah, thank you for that question. That's always a good question.
Chris was pointing out you can draw in the dark with the iPad as well.
Oh yeah,
Chris, how you. And then David Hartman was talking about how he likes using the iPad too, because he'll do his comics first thing in the morning. He'll just wake up, grab his iPad, and just sit in bed drawing. And I'm like, I definitely can't do that with my setup right now. So that does make it kind of appealing.
Yeah, and I will just to add, I have an iPad Pro and I hate drawing on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way.
It took me a long time.
I like the real estate. I like having this whole thing. I like being here and where
again, I'm not even saying you should like it.
Yeah.
I think I grew to like it not because it's a superior tool in terms of pressure sensitivity and things like that. It's a superior tool for me because I could use it anywhere. So that's what made it. Sure. Yeah, that's what made. If I'm drawing more because of it, even if it's an inferior tool, it work that so it's not just the project you're working on, but the life you're living is another.
Sure. Yeah.
Also, I want to highlight how much a creature of comfort I am. Like I have had a Cintiq. I actually got rid with a screen, and I got rid of it for an old school Wacom tablet that is just a $40 tablet, and that's what I do everything on.
Like I got some people that drew with the mouse, and I'm like. That's like someone.
Well, like DKNG, like one of the best gig poster artists out there. I was at Adobe Max, and somebody said, "Hey, could you describe your setup?" And the guy said, "Oh, I haven't really thought about it, but I guess I just built like a bigger iPad Pro. Like I started with a trackpad, and then now I just have like a huge 6K monitor and just a bigger trackpad." And I'm like, "What?" Like he's drawing with his fingers on a trackpad. Oh my gosh! And he's one of the best out there.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay.
That's wild.
Yeah. Right. But yeah. Anyway, we could talk tools a lot. But yeah, I loved the iPad, and then I realized why I don't like it, and now I hate it. And I actually use I don't have it near me, but I use a Move Ink now that Wacom gave me for doing some work for them. And I like that a lot. Like
there's a review of that on your channel
there
too,
is.
Cory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So if you want to go watch that, you can see me draw. I can't remember what I was drawing. Oh, the Amor Fati skeleton heart guy. I talk about it on that one. So yeah, if you're interested. But yeah, there's lots of good tools out there, and I don't know. It's like I long for the days of. I long for a life that I don't have, where I can sit down and ink everything traditionally. Because I do like the idea of, if this thing took off, it would be rad to have a stack of a couple hundred pages that you can sell for, $60 to $250 a piece. That'd be awesome.
I will say also there's that beautiful joy that I still to this day, like I miss this. And when I get to Jacob's Apartment book 2, that I have all blocked out and stuff. So when this is done, that's my next crazy boulder. I'm eager to get back to when I work on a page, having ink all over my hands. There's something about getting your hands dirty when you're working that just feels like art. And I wonder if that's probably a nostalgic thing, because I'm guessing kids who grow up with like iPads, like my son, his iPad's like super natural for him. So he's probably more comfortable working on an iPad than he is working with like pen on paper, right? And so for him, I think maybe it'll be nostalgic to use a screen and weird to use. But for me, there's that nostalgia of getting my hands dirty. Reminds me of like drawing when you're a kid.
There's a romanticism. It's almost well, I was gonna say it's an affectation, but it's real. It's an indicator, a signifier. Like if you go get a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or you go out to the store, whatever, and you got paint on your jeans or you got ink on your hands, people know you've been doing something. Yeah, like it's.
I made a new OC.
Okay.
And they also add warts.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. Let's go ahead and close things out. And I'll start with you guys again. If you have any closing thoughts, just drop them in there, and then promote what you need to promote.
Sorry, I missed what you said, Scott.
So we're gonna basically do what we did in the beginning of the show, but we're gonna go around. We're gonna start with you. But if there are any closing thoughts you want to do, throw those in there as well.
I'm not going to throw any closing thoughts in. I think we've heard enough from my mind box. I will say the main thing I'd like people to do right now is check out the Mighty Mascots on Indiegogo, issue 10, 10th anniversary. My buddy's doing it. I have a variant cover on there. Go check it out. If you do decide to back it, please back my cover. I'd like to get the numbers up and make everyone else feel like it was worth hiring me. So maybe I get some more variant covers. Other than that, you can find me online. I'm Gazbot just about everywhere. I am on Blue Sky. I am on YouTube. I am on Etsy. I am on Instagram. And what I'm currently working on is the 3rd issue of my kaiju comic, The Horror A4. The first 2 are available on Indie Planet. The 3rd one will be available at some point in the future, which I will not say.
All right, Josh.
JoshuaKemble.com. Check out Joshua Kemble on Spotify or YouTube, or you can check out No Saboteurs. There is perchance a 3rd album in the works that is probably some of the best music I've written in years. That we're very much taking our time, like mastering and mixing it. So keep an eye out for that, and then support indie comics by getting 2 stories and Jacob's Apartment after getting Horror A4, because I have not been more pleased than when I found out Gaz was picking that up again, because much like Scott, there is a brilliant thing in the plot that I want to see play out. And
that is a bold statement.
No, it's a good story. So it needs to be told. So go support Gaz first, and then Cory, what you got?
Yeah, so if you guys want to see what's going on with this nuclear family of ladybugs that I've been inking this time, you can go check out CoryKerr.com/rage to go read Rage of Enlightenment, which is a comic about the rebellion against the Industrial Revolution and whether or not automation is worth it at all costs, and what we should do to fight for humanity and creation. All told in the shadow of an oak tree with a community of insects. And so you can check that out. And then I've also got a story about time travel that you can, well, not time travel, but about time breaking down that you can read as well. CoryKerr.com/book.
All right, and you are on my channel, so that's where you can find my stuff on YouTube. Videos, go back, check out Making Comics 101, all the new videos that I'm doing, my projects and everything, great stuff. Just check it out. Also, I have a website, Serkworks.com, where you can find tools, digital tools to help you make comics. I also have prints and wax pack trading cards and all kinds of cool stuff on there. Check that out. And like I said, Black Friday, if you happen to be in Arizona and you want to come up at midnight, go to Surprise Comics and you will get something very similar to this, just a little bit smaller. It'll be 11 by 17, print free with the purchase of anything on that day. I'll be there at midnight signing for an hour or 2. Then I'll be back. Not the next day, the same day technically, and sometime in the afternoon, and I'll be doing sketches and stuff. So check that out. Black Friday. Also, I think that's it. Other than to let you know, we'll be taking the break next week for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back. I believe on Josh's channel. But this show that you're watching now does rotate between my channel, Cory's channel, Josh's channel, not necessarily in that order. It gets confusing, but if you don't want to be confused, just join our mailing list. There's a link in this description, and we usually send out a notification before we go live to let you know where we're going to be, what channel, all that kind of stuff, so you don't you don't get confused. And while you're at it, just subscribe to all 3 of our channels too, and hit the notifications, and maybe YouTube will let you know, but it's not guaranteed. So,
guys,
yes,
we got Thanksgiving. We got to say thanks to our chat and thanks to everybody.
Thanks to chat.
Happy Thanksgiving. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate people who support us and are in our community. It drives us all to make comics. So thank you guys for Thanksgiving. Just saying.
Absolutely. All right. We will see everyone in a couple weeks. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for having me, everybody.